when we're at the All-Star game, how hot will the Manny Machado market be, do you think, with the trade deadline, I think 10 days hence at that point in time?
He is the biggest prize, Rich. I think on the trade market this summer, Manny Machado, because of the multi-positional value he's got, he can play some short, he can play some third, whether it's the Dodgers to play shortstop, whether it's the Phillies or the Braves, those younger up-and-coming teams, I could see him being a great fit there. The Yankees and Red Sox, less likely now. They've got enough, Rich. They've got enough. I think he's going to the National League. I'd love him in Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is a sneaky, bold team right now because they could have gone for it last year. They had a young GM, David Stearns, who's very good, and it turns out Jose Quintana goes to their rivals in Chicago, and really the Cubs never looked back last year during the regular season. I think now the Brewers, whether it's a starting pitcher or maybe one more impact infield bat like Machado, I would love Machado going to a team like the Brewers and really enliven that National League Central race.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to peg one player who might tip the balance in a postseason in the same way that you just mentioned with Jose Quintana, for me, having, following the Yankees as I do, Gerrit Cole could be that guy that the Yankees had him targeted,
yes,
and couldn't get him or didn't get him,
right?
And then he goes to Houston, and he has been phenomenal, part of a rotation that is off the charts, leading teams like the Yankees. I don't know, are the Red Sox looking for pitching too when it all comes down to it? I guess everybody could use it.
Everybody is,
but
right?
So what's the pitching market going to look like in July? There doesn't seem to be a Verlander out there this year that somebody could just say, all right, we'll take his absurd salary on.
Right.
And is there anybody out there?
Well, it's interesting, Rich. I would say Cole Hamels maybe fits that description a little bit of Verlander type, someone who's achieved so much earlier in his career, is on a larger contract. And I know when we talked last year at the deadline, we were sitting right here having this conversation. Verlander was a big topic of discussion back then.
Well, Houston was so, I mean, I think that Dallas Keuchel went on record saying our front office is not trying very hard because they didn't pull the trigger at the deadline, but did obviously when it was
in the waiver period. It was such the way
last
things
second, literally
a
last second.
Yeah, Verlander's told me the story that basically it was 11:59 and 57 seconds, the timestamp of the email that confirmed that the trade happened. It was literally seconds. And, of course, that transaction, Rich, changed the whole course of the playoffs and what happened not far from here at Dodger Stadium in Game 7. And, of course, Verlander pitched Game 6. But it was amazing the way that Verlander swung that entire postseason picture on that one decision with seconds left before the deadline. And I think, too, we talk so much about the way that the great pitchers like Verlander can reinvent themselves. And I think we're seeing it happen a little bit with Felix Hernandez in Seattle. He's had a good run here recently. Felix has never pitched in the playoffs, Rich. A great player, a Cy Young winner, has never been in the playoffs. And with the Buffalo Bills finally making the playoffs last year, the Mariners, another great national team when you think about Griffey and the heritage there, they have not made the playoffs since 2001. That's the longest postseason drought in all of major pro sports. They are in position to end that drought right now. And I think for them, we talk about the pitching market, whether it's a J Happ from Toronto maybe going to Seattle, or one of the more controllable pieces. One name to remember right now, Blake Snell, the near no-hitter last night. Blake Snell in a what's a pretty thin pitching market right now, unless Jacob deGrom is moved by the Mets. Blake Snell is a name to watch very carefully. He has really emerged, a young lefty there with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is always in that sort of rebuilding mode, or at least looking for ways to optimize the value of their players. Blake Snell right now is a big-time name.
So to bring it all full circle with us talking in the first segment with you about Mike Trout's only played in 3 postseason games and what a shame that is. Felix Hernandez is like, hold my cerveza.
Right. Never.
0. I mean, and so last thing for you is Bumgarner. That's a pure fantasy. I mean, because obviously the Giants have a shot here, just 3 out of the wild card, 4.5 out of first place. But, that's definitely a Yankee fan fantasy that somehow Mad Bum winds up with the Yankees and he adds them to this list of so many generationally talented young players for October.
It's a great point. And I think that's a team to watch really carefully, Rich, in the coming weeks, because there's some optimism that maybe once Samardzija and Cueto get back and rolling, that they could get back into this National League West race. But I look at the way the Dodgers are playing right now and say to myself, I don't see the Giants passing them. And if the Giants are not going to pass them, and they've already invested so much money in this year's team, they've got an old team. And when you've got an old team that's not in first place, you'd better take a long look at ways to get younger and reposition yourself for the future. And if that's the case, Bumgarner being available, I would say check back in a couple weeks at the All-Star break when you're there in D.C. I think that the Bumgarner trade possibility, if the Giants have a rough couple weeks, could be very present and very real at that point in time.
All right, last thing for you. I was told Don Bowie, my coordinating producer, got in my ear and say, you, John Paul Morosi, who I know lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, you have some interesting information on how Harbaugh called up C-Webb and said, let's get together. Let's try and
I don't have the inside story on that, exactly how the conversation went, but I would say this, as a Michigan resident and lifelong Michigan fan, I'm excited. I think Chris Webber belongs as part of the family, although Michigan has never quite been so great in football as it was when you were there as the honorary game captain. So I think we need, Rich, come home, back to Ann Arbor. We need you back because the last time you showed up, the Maize and Blue were one spot away from that Big Ten title game. So I think we need you back on campus.
Well, my timing was perfect because I was the honorary captain against Central Florida in the year that they had no wins as opposed to the year they had no losses. My timing was impeccable against UCF.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.